one podcast, mining the Magic the Gathering subreddits for salt. This is the Howling Salt Mine.
It's the Howling Salt Mine. The Howling Salt Mine.
Welcome back, prospectors, to another episode of the Howling Salt Mine podcast, the podcast where we delve into those salty, salty mines of the Magic the Gathering community, finding the saltiest stories, your salty confessionals. We'll put those in our mine cart, bring it back up, and share it with you, our listeners.
Somebody insert some like claps. I feel like the claps I'm doing right now are not like good.
Back again. It is me, your host, Sam. And as always, I'm joined by my two co-hosts, Mike and Tony. Say hey, guys.
What up, what up, what up?
Howdy ho.
Howdy ho, indeed.
It's never felt better. It's never felt better.
Yeah. Welcome back, me.
Guess who's back?
Yeah, who's back? Back.
How did it feel for you guys to
Yeah.
not have the pressure of having to do the intro this week? Did that feel freeing? Does it
You know,
feel
that's
good?
not the pressure. It's all the rest of it. The intro's the part that I feel chill about.
Tony's just relieved he doesn't have to read.
Yeah, reading is difficult.
Mandatory
reading is hard, man.
I'm still gonna shit on you for it, but like reading
Oh, I
is
know.
fucking hard.
I gotta say, it was incredibly cathartic for me to listen to the recordings, especially the raw recording of that first episode you guys did, where you fucked it up so many times. And there were so many things like, whoa, what is that stupid shit that Sam says? And then like
Yeah.
2 minutes later, it would be like a plea, like, when is Sam coming back? Because this is hard and I don't want to do it. Like, it was just awesome.
In fairness, we committed to it. We were like, okay, Sam's not here, and we're gonna do it as raw as we fucking
Yeah.
can. We're
Yeah,
not
I was
gonna
like, Tony,
prepare at
can
all.
we plan some stuff? And Tony was like, nope. We just have
Yeah.
to start
Yeah.
recording and try and get through it.
Yeah.
It felt more right to do it that
Mike
way.
was like, Tony didn't even let me plan at all. Like, I wanted to at least get ready. And he was like, no, we just have to start and record.
I think that made it more natural, you know?
I mean, in a way, I guess. Well, yeah, I'm back. Glad to be back in the old mine.
Glad to have you back.
Because we had such a vicious backlog. To the listener, I was only gone for 2 weeks, but I was gone for 5 weeks.
Yeah,
So
that's true.
It's a
been
long time for
long
us,
time.
not a long time for the listener.
Yeah, it has been some time. So mostly just backseat driving when things are going wrong with the podcast upload.
AKA
never
every
happened.
single episode,
Never happened.
every single release without Sam around.
Not
just
even one
something
of them.
going
They were all
wrong.
good.
No, I was telling Tony that I'm pretty sure one of those weeks was fine. One out of the 5.
That is true. I do think I had one release go
flawless week.
correctly.
Yeah.
Oh,
man.
baby.
Yeah. So look forward to an improvement of the quality of the for our
Oh,
listeners
Bouncing back.
oh.
as we once again keep Tony away from the editing table. No, I'm
Whoa.
kidding. Tony did fine.
Tony
The
did
editing
great.
was good. It's just the posting part.
It's just the execution.
It's
It's
the including the
yeah, you're right.
instruction manual on how to release notes in the release
Oh my
notes.
God. That was so funny. I opened it up in Spotify and it was like copy over the text below for the episode description. I was like, oh my God, did Tony just copy paste from like the manual I wrote you guys before I left?
Well,
Yes.
in my defense, I did, but I copy and pasted too much apparently.
Yep.
And because I like took the template and I wrote the thing and I behaved. You have no idea how many times I rewrote that because I was like, Sam wouldn't approve of me saying these things.
Good. I'm so glad.
Thank you.
But the message was more lame as a result. Let it be known. It would have been better if I
No, it would not have
gotten
been.
to put what I wanted.
No, it would
It was
be.
just for the Patreon one. It wasn't even for the
It would be
like.
censored.
Those are supposed to be the same, Tony. They're supposed to be the same.
No,
I
it was
noticed that
supposed
you
to be
did a
little
different
personal
one.
touch.
And that was the one I read first, the Patreon one, and I was like, oh my God, did he put this to the fucking regular episode. Like, this is not how it's supposed to be.
No, I give them a special touch. They get something a little special, because I care.
Yep. Love and care.
No, you're not supposed to care. So what else is new? I've been off and doing tons of video game stuff with my time. And I beat Tunic and crushed it. I've been getting into like Elden Ring, getting into it more than I already was into it. And all these other games. And I've also been playing a lot of One Piece.
Oh, yeah.
You fucking nerds.
Yep. A lot of One Piece TCG with my wife. I got a couple decks and we played a couple games and she was like, this is dope. And I was like, sweet, I'm going to buy all the decks.
I'm going to buy 10 decks.
The real thing there was you got like approval. Seal of approval happened.
I just
so
needed
you're like, now
nod.
I can just buy fucking all of them.
Yeah. It was like the tiniest thumbs up of approval. And I was like, sweet, all of the decks are in my cart.
Implying they weren't in the cart already.
I know, right? I hadn't already found like sources for them. But yep, that's been really good. And now I'm just playing Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, dude.
Oh man.
So fucking good.
So I don't have a Switch.
Well, you're trash.
Well, I've been thinking about I just feel like it's so fucking old. Like I feel like I'm gonna buy it now and they must release the new system in like a year, right? Like
who cares, dude? That is like such a weird I get why people say that argument, but I think it's so wrong because the Switch has amazing games out for it. If you buy it, you'll be able to play all the amazing games.
But I mean, I assume I've played a handful of them. I feel like Switch is great for party games. Like it's got so many great party game type things like the Mario parties and Smash Bros. And like who buys it for anything else other than Breath of the Wild? Like that's fine. And like, so I could play those two games. I have watched too much of Breath of the Wild get played because I'm a scrub. I feel like Zelda games are actually where this all started for me of like, they're stressful to play and I like watching other people play them. And so I've really been going back and forth of like, do I want to just watch some streamers play Tears of the Kingdom or do I want to actually play it? And I'm trying to get like,
play it.
It sounds like the reviews are like that it's good. Definitely not saying it's bad, but it doesn't like blow Breath of the Wild out of the water or anything, which was also a phenomenal game. It's like just very,
I think that's less of like a
it.
Condemnation of Tears of the Kingdom and more of just like high praise for Breath of the Wild.
It was more like if it was like a next tier from Breath of the Wild that was like kind of this like next tier Zelda, then I would be like, all right, then I'm definitely gonna get it. But it sounds like it's just like on par with it as opposed to it's like 2.0, but not necessarily drastically improved.
So like Breath of the Wild is a masterpiece Zelda game, a masterpiece video
it's
game.
a masterpiece.
100%. And Tears of the Kingdom is just an improvement on Breath of the Wild. So it's like a better masterpiece. I mean, what you can't go wrong, man. I will say though, it is a sequel. Like it's a sequel game. Which is, Zelda games have done that previously with like Spirit Tracks and Phantom Hourglass and some shit like that. But this is like a true sequel. So like if you didn't play Breath of the Wild, you probably still can play Tears of the Kingdom and like enjoy it. But there's going to be some story elements that are a little bit lost on you. And I think that would detract from the experience. Like I think if you're gonna play it, like crush Breath of the Wild right now and then get this game.
I would probably just watch the whole like cutscene strung together on YouTube or something, like, which I also enjoy doing. Have you guys done that?
Do that.
Oh yeah,
I've done that for many different games.
I've done that for so many games. I've done that
long. Some of it's like 40 fucking hours that I'm like, oh my god. What
sometimes
am I
you're
doing?
watching a whole TV
the God
show.
of War ones, like the old God of War games, 1, 2, 3, and probably the new ones have this feature. Once you beat the game, there's an option to watch all of the cutscenes in a row.
Wow.
And there's two options. One is all of the like high-end video cutscenes. So it's like, here's all the cinematics and you can watch it in a row and get the plot. The other option is all of the cinematics and all of the cutscenes. So anytime there's like plot dialogue that is like slightly on rails, you can watch it. And it ends up being like almost an hour of content. It's like an hour movie that you can watch.
The one that I did that with, I bought on Steam sale like Halo Wars at one point. I don't know if you guys ever played this game.
I never did. I used to love Halo, but
yeah,
never played
that's
Halo
the thing.
Wars.
I'm like a huge sucker for Halo lore. I more so used to be, but like,
Did you read the
I
books?
read all of the books.
Fuck
Yes,
yeah, the
I read
books,
like
dude.
so many
The
Halo
books are
books.
good.
So I was like deep in the lore of it, and then I bought a Halo Wars on Steam one day because it was on sale. It was like $10 or something. And I played like 2 levels and I was like, that's okay. Yeah, this is a good game. Wonder what the story gets like. And then I just watched the entire cutscene for it. And that story is like hours of content. Yeah, I love doing that. Thank you to everyone that's already played games and then posted online so that we don't have to play all of them.
Fucking legends. Like,
And it is funny. Like I'm so adverse to spoilers in games. I was just talking about this the other day with my friend Matt. Like to the point where if I'm telling somebody about a video game I'm playing or even like a show I'm watching and they're like, oh, it's about to get really good. Like that's to me, that is a spoiler. Because I'm going into that next segment being like, well, like waiting for it to get really
you're
good.
like, what's gonna fucking happen? And then if it doesn't like live up to the expectation,
it's like someone saying like, oh, there's a huge tone shift in the plot when you get to the third act. It's like, don't tell me that, man. Like I don't want to fucking hear that shit.
Well, that is a lot. That's a lot.
But that's what they're saying when they're like, hey, it's about to get really good. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
I guess so.
Like that's like the subtext there.
Well, I found the problem is like the internet knows what I like, and so it's annoying because they're like, "Oh, you bought God of War Ragnarok," and then all of a sudden I get like YouTube recommendations while I'm playing the game that like just the thumbnail like is a spoiler.
Yeah,
and like I'm like, "Fuck internet." And so now when I get new games,
like Kratos shaves his beard, and you're like, "Fuck."
I just feel like now I try and avoid the internet, which is fucking impossible,
dude.
When I get a new game, I'm just like I gotta like grind through if it's like story driven anyway.
That's what I've been doing with Breath of the Wild. It's been like head down, and whenever I see something online about it, I'm like, scroll past that shit. Like I don't want to see any of it.
Yeah,
but it's great. You should get it, Tony. You should get a Switch, dude.
I'm thinking about it.
Do it. There are other great games on it, man. You can play fucking Skyrim on Switch.
Fuck Skyrim. Who fucking plays Skyrim?
What? Canceled? Are you kidding me? Speaking of good games, have you guys ever heard of Magic the Gathering?
No.
Yeah, I don't know that it's good though. Yeah, I'm kidding. It's great. Top tier. It's excellent.
It does make me salty sometimes.
Ooh, nice transition.
But Sam, what's salt, baby?
Tony, how I've longed to hear those words directed at me and not at Mike. Well, Tony, great question. Salt is frustrations in the game.
Ooh, baby, preach.
Salt is when you're playing a game and your friend is building up a powerful board state and keeps pointing to yours as if it's a problem. And you only have a couple things out, and they're deflecting really well. Oh yeah, I was still feeling salt. And you're playing your like just turn creature sideways deck, and he plays Archfiend of Ifnir, which is a fucking trash card. And it's just rummaging and discarding a fuck ton of cards and putting -1/-1 counters on everything, so you can't maintain a board state. There's bullshit, Tony, and that's what salt is.
I feel like what really makes you salty is that you did remove it. You did the good thing, and then I just brought it back the next fucking turn.
Dude, that was literally after we were talking about it. Like we had to take a break after this game. I was so fucking salty. We had to like go outside. And, like it literally like touched the grass. Tony was like, well, you guys should just run more interaction, like kind of as a joke. And I was like, I fucking removed it, dude. Like I literally did that. Like I used all my resources to remove it, and you just brought it back.
I don't think I said it. I think Mike said it. He's like, we just have to have more interaction. And I was like, well,
no,
I did bring it back.
You. It was 100% you.
Sure
yeah, you're right,
Mikey.
Mike. It was Tony. I was just so blind with rage, man. Oh my God. That was so funny. I think you guys talked about it on the last episode, but it was just so funny to have my wife like firsthand see how like shitty we are to each other when we play. Like we're just constantly insulting each other, and not even good insults. It's just like someone will just play a card and we're like, that's a fucking stupid card.
Yeah, you suck. I can't believe you put that in your deck. You suck
like the most low effort trolling on each other and just giggling the whole time. It's so funny, man. I love it. But yeah, we're going to be
baby.
talking about salt and salty stories. We got some salty posts from the internet, from our listeners today. We got some from our patrons. And yeah, we're going to be ripping into them, spreading that salt, spreading that salty love.
Grip it and rip it, baby.
Rip it and rip it.
Hell yeah, brother.
I actually haven't ripped a pack in a long time.
Whoa.
Really?
Yeah.
I've ripped some pretty recently. Some of our dear listeners sent me packs. I was ripping them. I got some good shit.
It's like sad, but I have learned that it's better to buy what you want from a set rather than buy a
always.
box.
Oh, of
Hope
course.
that you're gonna get good
You're
shit.
only just learning this.
But it's no,
Tony.
I learned it to the point that now I'm like not doing it anymore. Like
Mhm.
now I'm actually just like buying the things that I want when it comes out because I'm like I will
Yeah.
spend less money getting all the things I want that are expensive from the set rather than the fucking high I get. But I miss the high.
I don't buy
you
a
know?
pack to get a card. I buy a pack
Same.
because it's fun to rip a
Yeah,
pack.
because I want to crack a pack.
Oh well, it's the same thing, but I'm buying booster boxes and ripping a whole
Yeah,
box.
that's
Just
that's
like-
Yeah,
a
you,
little bad.
you can't do that. That's wrong.
It feels so good when it's happening though.
When we go for like walks around town, like just a little walk around the block type thing, there's now a game store on the corner. So it's like,
Ooh, baby.
oh, do you want to go for like 20-minute walk? It's like, oh, while we're here, do you mind if I just duck into the comic store real quick, spend $5 and then walk away as like 20% happier because I have a pack to rip when I get home.
My booster pack etiquette lately is like, we've been hitting up this LGS. Shout out to TJ's Cafe. Place fucking rules. And we've been hitting it up like semi-regularly, at least once a month, maybe sometimes twice. And my new booster pack etiquette is when I'm at an LGS, I buy a booster pack.
Yep.
Either one or two, maybe three. And I always buy like a premium pack. Like I'll buy something from like an old Masters set or, like a collector's booster or something like that. Like I want to get like the riskiest pull. And it's paid off, dude. One time at TJ's, I fucking opened a Mana Crypt. It was fucking insane.
And we're all like, oh, okay.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Should we talk about a post?
Yeah, let's do it. All right, let's get into it. This story comes to us from one of our patrons, Accidental TPK. What's up, dude? Thank you for the lovely story. And this post is titled, Am I the Saltiest Baby? And it goes. Gonna pose a little Am I the Saltiest Baby to you all. Unique deck building is one of my favorite things. I love picking a commander that has a few decks on EDH Rec or exploits a weird mechanic. I am known in my pod for playing subpar / janky cards in my decks for the flavor. Now to my potential problem. I absolutely hate it when my deck idea gets taken, on purpose or not, by another player who is close to me. I feel conflicted about this because on one hand, deck building is a point of pride for me. It's a way I can express myself while also having fun, and it feels like I can't make that deck anymore because it feels like I am challenging their deck by making my own. On the other hand, they're just Magic decks. If I make a deck and a player makes the same theme / commander, there's a massive chance that the decks will be over 40% different. I might get accused of trying to outbuild another deck, but if it's not what I meant to do, it doesn't matter, right? Let me know what you think, and don't be afraid to call me out. I'm more likely to change if you do, provided it is warranted.
I feel this one. I deeply feel this one.
I knew you would, Mike.
I love deck building concepts. I think I'm the same as Accidental TPK here. It's like the amount of kind of expressiveness you can have with your card choices, the variety of different strategies you can use. Like there's so much in the game that you can explore, so many different mechanics, that if someone has something that's like this post is saying like 60% similar to something, that feels like you should be able to have things that are so 100% dissimilar to each other that even just having that little bit of overlap gets kind of frustrating and sad, particularly in EDH because it explores so much of what Magic has to offer. Like there's a little less of this in every other format because it's like, okay, Standard has probably, you know, kind of a set number of archetypes. Like the cards can only support certain things. But in Commander, you just have so many different directions you can go that it's really hard when something shows up and you don't want to feel like either that copycat or like you're being copied. And one of the best things that you can do is just build it anyway in a test environment. So maybe like put the list together in a Mox field or something. You can still have
here
that
comes
fun.
the fucking Mox field.
Yeah.
The Mox field OBS shilling.
No,
comes
no,
out
that's
every
separate. That's
time
separate.
I
I'll
see
show
Mike
that
now.
later. I'll show that
Hashtag
later.
sponsored.
We're
But
not
you can still
sponsored.
have you can still have the fun part of building the deck list and like doing
Yeah.
that creative part without necessarily doing the playing it piece. And then the other thing is, if you find yourself really not wanting to play and have that kind of awkward social component of it, you can just play that in another pod. You can play that deck in another group. Like I built a deck for Sam that I liked so much that I wanted to play it, and I'll never play it with Sam and Tony and Nick because I'm never going to step on, Sam being able to own that kind of concept and that role in that deck in our pod. But I might play it against other people occasionally because I like the concept, and it keeps it kind of separate in that way and doesn't have the overlapping of ideas there.
Yeah, I totally agree with accidental TPK here and with what you're saying, Mike. I do think it's disheartening. I mean, I think it is totally fine to feel some ownership over a concept and, feel like it's like a creative expression and stuff like that. Not to the point where I would ever dissuade someone from wanting to build a deck that's similar to mine, but more from me looking out. If I see Tony playing a specific deck, then I'm probably unlikely to try to build something in that same vein.
Totally.
There are some things that I would say, as like the concepts get broader, I think it's less of a problem. Like Tony and I, as our listeners know, Tony and I both have Togo decks that we got for Secret Santa, where Tony's is red and green with Togo and Ich Tekic. Mine is red and black with Togo and fucking other guy at the
Keskit. Literally doesn't even matter. You like don't even play it. Keskit. Right?
Keskit. Oh fuck, my brain. Yeah, Togo Keskit. Like those decks play. They honestly they don't even really play similar, but they have similar themes and probably do share like 40% of the cards, or maybe 30. There's probably a bit of overlap there, right? But like I never feel like Tony's stepping on my toes when he plays that deck, and vice versa. Granted, it's not the same exact commander, so slightly different. Tony, how do you feel about this? I mean, you notoriously are always copying decks from Josh Lee Kwai, playing the exact same shit that he plays.
Looking up his deck lists.
For years, you've done this. So
net decking all of Josh Lee Kwai's decks.
Yeah, we kind of have two sides of the spectrum with Mike and then you, who's just
you guys are
a constant copycat.
It's something frustrating because I feel like,
sorry, jokes aside, like how does that feel? Because you have, I mean, we're teasing you, but you have built decks and then a game nights comes on and it's the same deck that you just built and you're like, motherfucker, like that's, I think that's happened to you like 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, especially because like I guess for me, I think that Josh Lee Kwai and I like to build very similar style of decks.
Yeah.
And so having somebody who's like huge in the Magic community really like to build the same style as you makes it hard because they're always fucking making shit that you're like, God damn it. Like, I really want to play this. And now I feel like I do feel like I can't go build that. I've thought once or twice about just like, he's like released something. And after I see it, I'm like, God damn it. It's fucking, that's exactly what I want. But I'm not going to play this deck now because he's like fucking played it at game nights or whatever. And so like feels shitty. And then there's been a couple that I've built before they came out. And so I feel fine to leave those together. But it definitely makes it a challenge because it does. It just feels like you're like copying it, even though you would. And like I could go and like not look at his list and build the deck, but it's probably going to come out to like 70% the same. Mm-hmm. So I find what I tend to do is I just fucking build the shit I like, and I try to not look at other deck lists. I definitely look at EDH Rec. Everybody looks at like EDH Rec, but I generally don't look at other people's deck lists.
Yeah.
And I usually, this probably isn't an advantage, but I usually don't have other people look at my list either. I just fucking get it together and then slap it down on the table.
We know.
Yeah. That's a whole other thing.
But I find that it's usually what encourages me to make a new list is usually what happens. Like as soon as other people start making stuff that's similar or too close, I'm like, okay, well, I'll just make another thing now.
I think one of the hard things about this is with those, like you kind of were talking about this a little bit, Tony, or sort of dancing around this point, but there are some commanders that when you build it, no matter how you build it, it's probably going in a very similar direction as how everyone else is building it.
Yeah, I've called these decks like decks that kind of build themselves. Like if you're building a Go Shintai Shrines deck, like there's definitely room for some creativity, but you're gonna put the shrines in it. You know, you're just gonna
like
do
Urtet,
that.
like that new mirror commander. Like, guess what?
You're gonna put the
playing
mirror
all
in
the
it.
mirror.
Yeah, I feel like I actually like to build decks that are that where it's going in a direction, a very specific direction. But what I like it when it's a commander that's like really fucking weird and like it is like definitely one direction, but like a weird, you know, kind of unique thing that you're not normally doing. I don't tend to build decks that are like some commander that could go in like 10 different directions, where I think Mike kind of does that pretty frequently. Like I feel like you always have interesting brews that are of commanders that aren't, it's not so like spoken. It's not. Well, anytime you slap something down, Mike, I'm like, fuck, like I wouldn't have thought of that.
Yeah, like that Orzhov. You have that Aura human soldier deck. That's really crazy.
You little shit.
That deck is pretty tight.
I played 2 non-clerics in my cleric tribal, and everyone
They're the first
loses
2
their
cards you
mind.
played.
The first 2 cards you fucking played.
We're human soldiers. You're like, here
Well,
you
one
go.
tutored the other one, so yeah.
See, there's deck synergy around human soldiers. But yeah, my advice would be just build it. Just build the fucking deck. And like Mike said, build it in a deck building app. Build it in Moxfield or something like that. Sometimes when I have these deck concepts, I might start to get discouraged about like the creativity of it or how good it's going to be before I've even built the thing. And then I like actually put a list together and goldfish a few hands, and I'm like, I don't like this. This deck isn't good. Or I get to like 113 cards and I just can't cut the last 10. And, you know, like my Kithkin deck that we'll talk about at some point in the future, I just realized that it's like a bad concept. You know, like it kind of, sometimes you figure that stuff out during the deck building. So it's sort of like, I would recommend that you take it to that deck building point, but also at the same time, like if that's just your way of doing things, like don't change, you know?
Yeah.
Certain commanders get super trendy, and if you don't want to play those trendy commanders, that's totally fine. I'd say half the commanders I play are weird, abnormal ones, and the other half are like the most basic shit. Like my Rafik. Guess what? I have like a Rafik deck that is a Voltron strategy.
There it goes. The name drop.
What is it, dude? Is it an Enchantress sub theme?
I usually try and look up on EDHREC how popular a commander is, like before I build it. Like that's usually one of my personal first steps. I'm like, how many decks of this exist? And if it's a lot, I'm like, meh, I'm not gonna do it then.
I definitely have like that like hipster urge too of like, oh, I want to build something that people don't feel like they've seen before.
Yeah.
But I do think that one of the things that kind of shook me from this a little bit is sort of the mindset around CEDH brewing.
I was about to bring that up. Yeah.
Like people are way more collaborative about a deck list because everybody is narrowed in like on a smaller subset of the commander pool. So you have, you know, more people thinking about a smaller set of commanders. And you realize that there is still a lot of room for like expression and difference in your deck, even when you're targeting like a very specific strategy. Maybe even your strategy is shared between like the different instances. There's still a lot of space in individual card choices and like selection of cuts and includes. I don't know. What do you think about that, Sam? I know you do a lot of that kind of CDH brewing in the community as well.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of talked about this in
case you guys didn't know, Sam is the moderator of a Marat Discord, so
I am.
He definitely has a lot of experience with this.
Pretty reputable with a weird stacks deck.
You left the shitty part out.
No, I didn't. You're a jerk.
Shitty, weird stacks deck.
Tony, that's insulting, dude. I don't know if you intended that, but that kind of hurts my feelings.
It was intended.
We talked about this a little bit in our Extra Salt episode, our Patreon series. We did a CDH episode and talked about this concept a little bit, but the deck building joy for CDH exists in 10 to 15 cards. Whereas the deck building joy in a casual list is the entire thing, or you know, maybe 97 cards, assuming you're running a command tower and a soul ring in every single list in your commander. So, where like your expression in casual is really your entire holistic list, like how you're figuring things out, your synergies, your strategy. CDH, the meta is such that there isn't a ton of variation. And you have these established lists. And as a deck builder, your goal is to really take an established build and tweak it a little bit. And even when like new decks come out, generally speaking in CDH, I mean, you do get like the random off meta crazy deck that comes out, like Urza's Battlethopter was super weird and is doing crazy things in CDH. But generally speaking, even when a new commander comes out and someone turns it into a CDH deck, you're taking an established shell within the community and fitting a new commander into it. For instance, Evelyn the Covetous is this Grixis commander, and when it came out, people were like, this is kind of unique. It can do like World Gorger Dragon loops, but it has the added protection of blue. And World Gorger Dragon in Rakdos is a very established thing. World Gorger Dragon combos in Mardu is very established. And then Grixis on its own is an extremely established just powerhouse of a shell in CDH. So you take those deck building shells and just kind of mash them together. And then again, that creativity really comes out in the span of like 10 to 15 card choices. If you pair up like a bunch of people's different blue farm decks all next to each other, Timna Crom decks, you'll probably find a variation of 10 to maybe 20 cards between all those decks. And they're still doing similar things, similar game plan, but the pilot of that deck has found the joy in their deck building and their creativity and their expression in those very small changes.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is all great, but
thanks, Tony. I thought it was great too.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say,
great.
did we
You're
talk
right.
about the post enough for me to say what's the salt rating?
Yes.
We've gotten into deck building like philosophy here, which is like also interesting. But what do we think about the salt rating here on this post?
Well, to answer the question from Accidental TPK, am I the saltiest baby? No, you're not. It's totally fine to feel a little off or a little weird if someone builds a deck just like one you own and they're playing it in the same group as you, or if you want to build a deck but someone hits that concept first and you're like, man, I was stoked on that, but now someone else is doing it. I think that's totally fine. I think it becomes like a really salty thing if you're like telling other people they can't build specific decks because you own one like that. But it doesn't sound like you're doing that. But to the listeners out there, like, don't do that.
Yeah.
Like, let other people play the game. But like, you may run into mirror matches. There's a chance you'll see another commander at the table that does similar stuff to yours. So it's just kind of part of the game.
Yeah, when my banding flanking deck fucking hits the table and somebody else is running the same thing, I'm like,
and Dash Hope 69 is out here like, how dare you copy me?
Dude, I was about to shout him out too. Yeah.
Which is actually crazy because I really did have a list together for that at one point. But
Elish Norn
never
banding?
again. No, it wasn't Elish Norn.
Okay.
Just like a flanking banding bullshit deck. But it was like annoyingly complex. So I was like, I think they'll be mad at me, and by they, my pod, for playing this.
Yeah, and by they you mean us,
Yes.
Mike and I.
Because you're not going to know the rules for flanking or banding when you show up, and we're going to have to tell you how it works.
I was about to say
fine. I'll
exact same
know
thing.
it.
Because Mike and I will have to tell you how the deck works.
So we'll have to guide you through a breach loop.
When I made the Obeka deck, I looked up like rules of that, and I asked somebody who was a fucking judge. And he like gave me wrong rules. In the first game, I was like, no, I spoke to a judge about this. And then like
we were like, that's wrong.
we were like,
You
really?
talked to a bad judge.
Like literally. And I'm like, oh my fucking God, this is bullshit. Anyway.
Tony just talked to like a legal judge in the court of law and was like,
barrister.
how do you think this works? And they were like, I have no idea, but probably this way.
Exactly.
You guys want to move on to another story here? Another post?
Hell yeah.
Let's fucking do it. So this one comes to us from our Gmail and comes to us from our friend Micah, not to be confused with Mike's girlfriend, Mika. This is Micah, totally different person.
Yep.
And the post is titled Booster Packs Full of Salt. Felt this one would be appropriate because we were talking about Kraken packs earlier.
Nice.
And it goes. How goes it? I'm a big fan of the podcast and ironically pretty immune to getting salty, but I finally got a story to share with you guys. Preface. About a year ago, I got my piece of shit best friend into playing EDH with me.
Yeah.
Don't ever, yeah, love just calling them out immediately. We don't have a regular play group yet, but one of our traditions is to each buy a booster box every few sets and spend a night cracking packs together. My friend has been on a hot streak opening packs with the last few sets, and I've been getting generally unlucky. In Brothers War, he pulled straight gas, including both Titanias, the Argoth Land, and an Awake in the Woods. I couldn't care less, but my green-loving goblin brain was annoyed that he got all the cards I was hoping for. He got some good cards for me to trade for, and we laughed off how many green cards he got. Little did I know what the future would hold. The salt. Due to increased price, our tradition was modified when we split a booster box of Dominaria Remastered. As a joke, with the first pack, I set out 2 packs and had each of us roll a d20 for who gets to pick the packs. We roll, get our packs, and he starts the trivia game he likes to do to test my knowledge. Him, 4 mana blue creature. It was a full art Urza High Lord Artificer. I got a Soul Canar, the Swamp King. It's like a trash rare.
I was gonna say it's just fucking chaff.
Him, 1 mana green enchantment. Wow, an exploration. I got another Soul Canar, the Swamp King. Him, 1 mana green instant, freaking worldly tutor. I get a Nantuko Shade.
Nice.
Pile of garbage best friend. This seems like a really good green enchantment. A fucking Sylvan Library.
Fuck.
I get yet another Soul Canar, the Swamp King.
No.
At this point, I've salted up more than a movie theater popcorn with no drink. No matter who wins the dice roll or which pack I choose, he continues to pull bomb rare after bomb rare while I'm sitting on a pile of shit Canar swamp turds. Once we finish opening packs, this steaming pile of dog shit has the audacity to look me in the eyes and say, I was planning on sharing the cards we opened, but you wanted to do the dice rolling thing. This man put me in a baby rage I've never experienced before, and he's lapping it up like some kind of saltwater fish. The aftermath. I slipped off the salt and we laughed it off the next day. Mistress Fate decided to rub salt in the wound one last time a few days ago when he grabbed one of the 2 Dominaria United packs I'd bought at the store. Him. What's the chase card from this set? Me. I don't know. Sholdred? My friends, I cannot describe the absolute shit-eating smirk he had while he turned the card around, the best card I've cracked in months, and he can't even have the decency to let me open it myself.
It is amazing. There
great
are
story.
some people that just open gas. I know this isn't real, but I feel like I've experienced this. Like some people just, when they rip packs, they always open bombs.
Dude, that story earlier, I was saying when I opened the Mana Crypt, we were at TJ's and our friend Emmett was there. We had got some packs. And Emmett picked up my pack and he said, "This is going to have a Mana Crypt in it." And then handed it to me. And I opened it and it did. And everyone fucking lost their mind. And for the rest of the day, everybody let Emmett open their packs.
Yeah.
It's like so awesome.
It's just like a great little superstitions. Like some people just open great stuff. I definitely remember that in high school. Like someone opens something good. And then for the rest of the day, everyone's like, okay, you got to open my next pack.
I think that's a fun present to give people too, is like, hey, open this pack for me, because you get the joy of cracking the pack and the other person just cares about the cards. Like, I kind of love that.
Yeah, it's great. I know this is flipped around a couple times throughout like Magic's history, but I think there's some stuff about splitting a box generally being like kind of a bad idea.
Dude, yeah.
Like, I think there's kind of a set fixed amount of like value cards they put in it. I don't know if that's real, but like I know for a while there was like you only had a chance at hitting like a max of some number of mythics or something, for example. Yep. And so splitting a box with someone was actually worse than both of you just like buying a theoretical half of a box, because you were always just going to get half, or like one person was going to get all of the value of it and the other person was going to get left with shit.
It's kind of for that exact reason, be real or not. Like, I won't share a box ever with people. Like, if somebody wants to go in a box, I'm like, nah, it's just like not worth it. I feel like there's too many times that like Mike and I would buy a box and then we'd start ripping packs, and one of us would get something great, and we'd be like, "Oh, well, okay." Yeah.
Yeah. And you're like, man, if I just spent like the $50 more to have that box be entirely mine,
Yeah,
that card
then it would just
could
all
be mine.
Yeah. And so it's just like
I feel the same way, dude.
Yeah, it's 100%. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, I will always like be like, this whole box is mine. Like, that's just how it's gonna be. Like, I don't need you to open one pack in the whole thing and like have it be the one gas card and be like, fuck me.
I think the last person I split a box with might have been you, Tony. Did we split a mystery booster box
I think we did.
when they first came out? We both bought a box and then we split one.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah.
I might have done that too. We might have all done that. Like we might have bought like 6 boxes among the 4 of us or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
We're just like, let's fucking go.
Thankfully, I think our pulls were like, I don't remember a lot of salt coming from that because I didn't pull Mana Crypts from those. But yeah, dude, like I never split a booster box for that exact reason.
Yeah.
Or even like, even the thing of like taking 2 packs and being like, you take one and I take one. Like, oh my God. Never. I'm like, if the other person opens some, if I get a fucking Sulkin out of the Swamp King, I'm gonna be crying, man. I'll be like, no, wait, trade back, bro, please,
Please, bro.
please, bro.
please.
Yeah, like that is so disheartening, especially with these sets. Dominaria Remastered. I mean, I bought singles for it. I didn't buy packs. The singles were gas, and a lot of those great tutors were like fucking $4. That was one of the nights where Tony and I stayed up until like 2 a.m. and spent
that was
like
that
$300 each on cards.
Yeah. Hashtag no regrets.
These, yeah, none at all. But these high-end cards or these high-end sets that they're producing now are just packed with like shitty chaff rares that are just like garbage reprints. And that can just be so disheartening to crack those. I think we should read this because we mentioned it so many times. Solkanar the Swamp King is a legendary creature demon. It's a 5/5, and it costs 2 generic mana and a blue, a black, and a red. It has Swamp Walk.
Nice.
And it says whenever a player plays a black spell, you gain 1 life.
Nice.
Oh,
Who's building
incredible.
Fucking so good. I'm checking it out on EDH Rec now.
The Swamp King. I am the Swamp King.
That from something? Feels like that's
It is, but don't worry about it. Just edit that out.
Accidental TPK. Here's your next commander.
Oh, yeah. No one's stealing this from you.
Yeah, Solkanar the Swamp King has a whopping 360 decks.
Oh,
which,
wow.
Which feels like more than I
More than
would
you would have
honestly give it.
guessed.
Yeah. Oh man, it's got some high synergy cards. It seems like you mostly played as a mono black deck. Just kind of funny. But yeah.
Which is this combo with Chain of Smog? No, it doesn't. It
no,
doesn't.
because it's play.
It's got, yeah,
It's play.
copies. Okay.
That would be hilarious, though. We just discover a new combo. A new CDH deck.
Infinite life with this one simple trick.
Put it in a Grixis shell. It's got a 1-card combo. But you know what it is really good with? Fucking Urborg, man. Make all those lands swamp, and you're going to be swamp walking.
Mm-hmm.
True.
But yeah, that card does seem like trash. To our friend Micah, I apologize. Maybe you can use those as some great bookmarks or something.
Some really nice bookmarks.
Shitty Magic cards make the best bookmarks. You guys up for another one?
Let's
wait.
do it.
Tony, you didn't ask.
Didn't
the
even let
salty.
me ask what the fuck the salt rating was.
You're like falling asleep over there and you're like playing on the computer doing something. I can see that you're not focused.
That's not what's happening, fans. Don't listen to him.
Can you at least share with the class whatever the white panel looking on your glasses is?
I was literally looking. It's TCG Player. I was looking at
Buying some new
the
shit.
cards that we bought. I was like, are those have they gone up in value or down in value?
How's the value? How'd we do?
It seems to have just maintained, which honestly I was thinking some of them would go up, but they have
Really?
not.
I'm surprised.
Especially like the Vamp Tutor and like some of these
There's
things.
some speculation.
What did Mystical Tutor go to?
I don't remember.
Then don't look it up. We
I
wasted
closed
enough
that
time.
one. Yeah.
We wasted enough time.
Yo, so what do we think about the salt rating here on this one? It's fucking high. That's what it is.
Yeah, super high.
It is.
I would be so mad. I have been mad when somebody else has opened like one pack for my thing, got like a better card than all the bullshit that I open, and I'm like, this is bullshit. So I exclusively open whole boxes myself because that's how salty I am now.
Oh yeah, this is top tier salt of watching your friend eat a deliciously seasoned meal while you ordered just exactly the wrong thing.
Yeah. Oh, dude.
No, you got the same plate, but they just didn't fucking flavor yours.
They just made it worse. You both ordered medium rare, and yours shows up just completely black.
Yeah, literally.
Oh man, yeah. This is super high salt for me. I would be mad if my friend got just the Sylvan Library. The fact that they got all those other cards, I'd be like, come on, dude.
Yeah.
Like, this fucking sucks. Like, give me one of those, man.
Yeah.
It really is, like you said, Mike. I mean, that is like such a thing that I experience all the time is food envy. When I go out to eat, I'm like, I got the wrong thing. I want what they have. I don't want what I have. Like, my food's still fine, but I want that.
Yeah.
And man, yeah, that's a powerful thing.
See, I feel like my problem is that we have that when my fiance and I go out, but she always wants what I have, and it never ends well because I'm like, well, maybe you should have ordered it then. Like,
dude. I was just talking about this with my dad the other day because we went out to get like oysters and drink beers and stuff with my parents, and my mom was like, give me a sip of your beer, and my dad was like, no. He was like, I wanted to drink an entire beer. Not a beer and one sip less. And she was like, come on. And he's like, now I'm going to have to order a second beer so I can drink an entire beer. And like, he was goofing around, but sometimes with like, especially with like fast food and French fries, I totally get that where I'm like, I'm hungry.
Yeah, the fries are definitely
a large fry or like a medium fry. Like I'm hungry for a full fry. I'm not hungry for like a handful less of a full thing of fries,
because a handful could be a lot of fries,
dude. Especially if you have a smaller thing of fries, like that could be a lot of the fries, man.
Yeah, we're talking high percentage of fry.
Yeah. What's like the fry?
High fry.
The fry to grip percentage. Like if someone comes in and grabs like 5 or 6 fries, that's a lot. That's more than a taste test. You know, you get like 2 fries.
Yeah, because when you go to hand them one fry, you got to hand them like one of the ones. It's like, it's not like a big fry. It's like one of the little nubs. So you could be like, here you go. You can have that.
Dude, sometimes though, those really crunchy nubs that are down the bottom of the box
I was going to say,
sometimes those are the best
sometimes
ones.
You give a big
gold,
floppy
like,
one. You give them a big floppy one. It's like, well, that's a lot of fry. So I definitely didn't skimp on the fry that I gave you, but it's also not the best one. So you're not going to want more of these fries.
My strategy is I used to not be good at sharing my food. Now I'm actually pretty great at it. But the key is to give the person the best bite of the food. To be like, yo, you get the best fry, because then they have the best thing and they don't want more. If you give them the worst fry, they're going to be like, yo, I want 2 more fries. Give them the best fry though. Dude, you're done. That's it.
I have dabbled in that, and that does not work in all scenarios. Let me know. That's not always a functioning pathway. It's like, oh, why don't we actually just switch plates?
Oh my God, dude. To my friends who I will not name. I don't know why. I could name them, but I won't. That's what they do every single time they go out to eat. They agree on the 2 entrees they're going to get. They each eat half, and then they swap and they eat the other half. They do it every single place they go.
Yeah, we do that sometimes.
It feels like a good system.
Yeah. One time we ordered 2 things and we said we were going to share them both. And then the restaurant brought them both out, split, and they brought 2 plates out that had half of each of the meals.
That's
and
amazing.
We were like, wow, this is high fancy cuisine here.
That's crazy.
That is great, because I feel like when it's miraculous enough that Stephanie and I can do that, and we've settled on 2 things that the both of us want, I am just a very fast eater. Mm-hmm. And so I'll have eaten half, and I'm just sitting there fucking waiting for her to like swap it. And that's not like her fault. It's like
a personal problem,
she doesn't
man.
eat slow. Yeah, I like eat just like insanely fast,
like a horse.
Yeah, and then sometimes I'm like, I really need to get
Notorious
half, and I'm like,
fast
what if
eaters
I do like one
horses.
more sliver? Is it like gonna be okay? And then 6 slivers later, I'm like, it's too late. We can't swap anymore.
It's not a half and half situation anymore. Yeah.
Yeah.
At that point. That's truly why the best dining experience, and this is a hill I will die on, is shareables, tapas, things
Mhm.
like that. That is
I thought you were just gonna say an
dining experience.
omakase where you each get individual portions of everything.
100%. Dude, if I can mimic that eating experience where like tiny shared plates are coming out, we're all having the same bite and the same taste in the same moment, that is my favorite kind of eating experience. I love like sharing that shit with other people. I'm fine to like go somewhere and we all get our own thing, but I think the best things are like, yo, we're getting like 6 dishes, we're all going to have little bites, it's going to be the best.
Yeah, love that.
And when I have that food, I season it with salt. Salt is frustrations in the game.
Oh my god, you can't just say it when no one asks you what it is.
I definitely can. You can't tell me what to do. You guys want another one?
I do.
Yeah, let's hear another one.
All right, our next post comes to us from Reddit, from the EDH subreddit, our old stomping grounds, our favorite spot. I did a post on Reddit today, got fucking 2 comments. Thanks, Reddit.
Thank you, Reddit.
Love you, Reddit. Never
Thanks,
change.
Reddit.
I do love Reddit. I'm like being facetious, but man, sometimes I do something and like 200 people comment on it. And I'm like, damn, this thing's doing numbers. And some days I do it and like 2 people comment on it, and it's our 2 amazing listeners that every single week comment on it. Like tons of love to our Reddit following because they do keep us going. Every once in a while we get a post that's like, oh, another person shilling their podcast, and I'm just like, that makes me so sad, dude, when I read those. Oh, it bums me out so much. Like, quick aside, a couple weeks ago, like Mike did the Reddit post for us that week, and I was just like checking the comments, and this dude was literally like,
do you even read any of these?
yeah, oh my god, that pissed me off so much. He was like, do you even read these responses that people are putting here? Like, another person fucking shilling, blah 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 blah. And this was like, I don't know, 6 or 7 weeks ago, and like I was in fucking jury duty, man. Like, I'm not going to be whipping out my phone and like
and we
responding
had
to Reddit
responded
comments.
to like 70% of the comments too. And, like,
It's so it's like, come on. And then a few weeks later, someone else was like, another person shilling their content, clogging up the Reddit. I was like, dude, I post once a week. And that was my mistake, was replying. And he was like, it's not just you, it's everybody. And you're posting for your financial gain. It's like, I don't fucking make money off this podcast. Like, what are you talking about, dude? And I was like, okay, I can't reply again. Like, it was already a mistake to reply once. I'm just going to stop. So bad. Anyways, this one comes to us from Reddit. And this one comes to us from our new friend, Tara. And the post is titled, Made Somebody Imprisoned in the Moon a Land. And the story goes, basically, while playing against a knight equipment deck, I pulled a cheeky move on him. I've recently started running Tower of the Magistrate in my deck and felt it was such a great solution to fighting the constant, I'm going to equip my commander with X artifacts and gain X buff. So as the game went on, and each and every time the knight player would try to equip his commander or a strong card, I just tap my land and give their creature protection from artifacts in response to them equipping whatever they wanted to equip. Needless to say, he wasn't very happy that his Voltron equipment deck was getting completely countered by a land.
mm-hmm.
Eventually, he got so mad, he imprisoned in the moon my land to stop it from causing him so much pain. Took about 2 turns for him to start getting all his equipment added to his commander again, and he readied for an attack against me, only for me to chaos warp the enchantment and pop all of his equipment off again. He proceeded to concede and yell for about an hour about how stupid the land is to have such an annoying ability.
Love it.
Kind of spicy.
Love it.
I actually don't know this land.
We should look at it.
What's it from?
It's from Mercadian Masks, and it's on the reserve
it's old.
list. And it has 2 effects. The first one is tap to add a colorless mana. And the second ability is pay 1, tap, target creature gains protection from artifacts until end of turn. This is one of those cards that like nobody knew about until, or it was very slept on until I think it was on a Game Nights episode or an episode of the Command Zone podcast. and they talked about it, and now it's like $30 or $40.
It is an interesting thing where, we talk about how lands are kind of sacred in Commander. Like people get really upset if you start removing lands. But the problem with that is then if you put effects that are really strong on lands, it all just kind of falls apart because it's like this thing that's taboo to remove, but is now like a must remove situation.
Yeah. Almost makes a person want to build a deck that's nothing but those types of effects.
Yeah. I think it's a really obvious example too of like why like Caracas is banned, for example. Like if you put an effect on a land that's so like game warping, and people are not willing to be able to remove lands in some fashion, you're stuck in kind of this impossible spot. Like I didn't even know Imprisoned in the Moon could target lands. That's like a pretty funny thing. I guess it has to because it turns the permanent into a land, right?
Yeah. But it's one of those weird things. Yeah, I mean, first of all, this is incredibly spicy, amazing salt, top tier, fucking A+, especially to let them like rebuild a little bit and then be like, ooh, Chaos Warp, and you can de-equip all that shit again.
Yep.
That is just very well executed. But yeah, to your point, Mike, I think one of the problems with not only is like land destruction taboo, but there's also this whole thing with land where generally the stuff that removes land is like expensive or color locked into only red or green. And I think most land destruction effects are like 3 mana base and maybe 4 mana, and it's hitting like 1 land.
Unless you're running like the lands that remove lands. Like I think that's sort of
those
the
are the
accepted.
ones.
I feel like that's sort of like the accepted answer of like strip mine. I can't even remember.
It's an eye for an eye. You sacrifice
ones.
that land in order to get rid of somebody else's land. So,
strip mine, wasteland. There's one in the Innistrad sets. But even then, like you're losing like Tony said, eye for an eye, you are losing a land to deprive someone else of a land. So that is like in itself, it's sort of like, hey, we're both losing a land, you know?
Yeah.
Like I have my 1 silver bullet and I used it on your problem land. And now the game is going to continue and we're both a little bit behind. But I mean, it's hard. Like there's some lands that are really problematic. Like Gaia's Cradle obviously can just pop the fuck off in insane ways, and you better have some way to shut that down, or something to destroy.
Board wipe.
Yeah, board wipe would do it.
Guy's Cradle doesn't do a whole lot when all the creatures are dead.
Fair. Extremely fair.
What do we think about the salt rating here?
It's just delicious, dude. It's fucking perfect. I love it.
Finely crafted, artisanally chiseled into a perfect little cube.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I mean, if I was the knight player in this situation, I'd be fucking really mad. I've been in that position where a single card hoses your entire deck. I complained about it earlier, I think, if that made it into the episode, the Archfiend of Ifnir thing.
Yeah.
Where it's like, man, this one card is just crushing my entire deck. I literally can't do anything while it's on the board. Like that is super frustrating. But also like, that just happens sometimes.
Yeah, like when your friend says they're going to build a Yasharn deck because they don't like where the meta's at.
Because everything you do is aristocrats. But again, all of those are creatures. Like we're only talking about permanent types that are very removable.
Yeah,
so for it to be on a really difficult to remove permanent type, that is like truly top tier salt there.
Yeah, for sure. Like you can't do anything about it.
Right.
And like one of those cards where you're like, what is that? Can I see that? What is this card? What set did this come from? You just like,
you start asking all the details as if it's like fake. Like they're gonna like you're not
what the fuck is this
card. You know?
Who made this card?
Yeah.
How much mana?
Arcadian Masks. That's bullshit.
That's so true. I feel like when that comes out, when you're like, what set is this from? That's when it's like real.
Yeah. It's like the salt that really like turns your head. You're just like, what the fuck are you playing against me right now? I love that.
Meanwhile, like if you're playing over webcam, you're desperately looking it up on the side and being like, "This is bullshit." Like,
you're
just bullshit card.
Clicking it frantically in spell table. Read, goddamn you! And it's like, oh, a revised Savannah, and you're like, that wasn't the fucking card I clicked on.
See, usually it's weird, like vanilla green creatures. I feel like, old vanilla green creatures that have no text.
Mine is always doing either a Savannah or like a weird forest or
Yeah.
some green creature.
Oh, for me, it's always a plains because I'm always clicking on Tony's card that he played directly into the glare.
Oh my god. Wouldn't matter if it was in the glare or not because you wouldn't be able to read it fucking anyway. Hashtag spell table sucks. Hashtag sponsored.
Yeah, we're not sponsored. We're definitely not sponsored by an anti-spell table group. But I mean, as much as I like spell table, it is very useful. But really diehard listeners will know that we are Google Hangout MTG extension fanatics, and that was our peanut butter and jam for years and years.
I don't even know why we switched. Like, why did we switch?
Because Mike's computer couldn't handle it.
You know what makes the cards perfectly readable on spell table? You know when they're always picked up by the spell reader?
Oh, I do know.
If they're off of
Moxfield
Moxfield. Yes.
Yeah, but then I just have to watch you guys like clumsily move around.
I'm getting unclumsy. That's user error. That's not a problem with the system.
Yeah, and it's so much user error.
I 100% take less time navigating a virtual deck than shuffling and doing shit manually at this point.
Okay.
Is absolutely quicker to pilot a deck virtually than in paper. It's not
will just
necessarily
say
better, but
there's a charm to playing in paper over webcam.
Absolutely.
I much prefer paper. I totally get, like, I think Moxfield OBS is valid. I also get why people in, pulling together like pickup games online will be like, no Moxfield OBS in this room. Like, I get why people 100%, do that. 100%. But it is great for playtesting decks. It's pretty awesome.
It's in particular for CH, right? Like, I don't want to have to buy these CDH decks
that are proxies anyway,
or even like a proxy and like wait for like proxies to show up and like all that.
And definitely don't buy that Stick Fingers deck that you fucking horribly played.
Oh my god,
sticky fingers.
I just need to play it correctly and not fuck up my first turn. That is what that deck does, though. That's the problem. Like, if you don't win on turn like 2 or 3, you're just out.
Yep.
There's no like.
You continue to intervention time. Mike and I talked about this beforehand. We're springing it on you now.
You got to build a mid-range deck, dude.
I had Corval. It's fine.
You had.
You continue to build these Glass Cannon CDH decks. Do not enjoy playing them, and then you're like,
I enjoy playing them.
No, you don't. You don't.
To a degree.
Every fucking time you played what was the one you used to play? Oh yeah, man, Anya. And then there was
Circu.
Well, Anya, the problem
Godo,
is that
every time you played Godo, you complained.
I mean, things are better now.
Well, I guess I'm out of the game now. It's like, yeah, that's the deck, dude.
Our meta is different than it used to be because
there's always a Sisse player in it.
Well, I was playing like into usually at least 2 control decks, which was like the problem. Like, that is not the meta to be playing those.
And now you can play into 2 stacks decks.
Well,
oh wait. That's worse.
It's not actually. There's like stacks and things that the deck can like fight through. So stop hating on my deck choices.
I'm just gonna build you a mid-range deck and put it in your hand.
Well, there is another deck that I was looking at that maybe I'll try too, but that one's like fucking complex. It's just a matter. It's a Grixis. It's the one that you can pay 1 and copy a spell that you've cast, and you do all the shenanigans.
Yeah, Cornella or something.
Yeah,
it's like a Son half deck, dude. Fucking definitely build that.
I was definitely thinking about building that, but again, that is like complex. Just in that, like, I don't really play in those colors in CDH ever, so I don't even have like the base. Mm-hmm. But I know black and red fairly well. But it's like it's just pretty different, the loops that it's doing.
And even then, like, you're still on Breach Freeze and Thoracle and like the classic shit that goes into a Grixis deck. So like you could pilot it, no problem.
Well, I guess it's more that you'll be in a scenario where you could win and you don't know it.
Yeah.
Like, that exists a lot in that deck, I think.
Yeah.
Of like, it's very hard to see what the fuck can be done, and all of a sudden you can just like fucking pop off out of nowhere. Which I
feel like I get in that situation all the time, but I'm just trash.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. And then I just pass. I pass with enough mana to recast Selvala and activate, and then don't. Sad soul.
Man.
Sad sulky soul.
Well, guys.
Well, anyway. Is it that time of the week?
Oh, boy.
I think it might be that time of the week.
Oh, baby.
I think it's that time.
It's the time of the week where we say, Mike, what's the salty card of the week?
Salty card of the week this week is
It's been a while since I have asked for a salty card. It's been a while since Mike told me the salty card.
Oh, I'm feeling the soul.
Thank you,
Got
Sam.
sad, baby.
Thank you,
It's
Sam.
been a while since Mike did.
Okay, I'm done.
The salty card of the week this week is Torment of Hailfire.
Oh,
Ooh.
baby.
Yeah.
Classic. A classic.
Truly
is
a classic.
Really.
Oh, man.
Torment of Hailfire, the classic that we've been describing. It is X black for sorcery, and you repeat the following process X times. Each opponent loses 3 life unless that player sacrifices a non-land permanent or discards a card. So let's kick it off. Sam, does this one make you salty?
No. No, this card doesn't make me salty at all. I think I see why it's on here. I think people think it's kind of like an uncreative win con in black or black plus other colors decks. Like you just make a ton of mana, shit it into this spell and cast it and hope that your opponents don't have the resources to like pull through, or it's enough of a hit where, you know, it's like a heavy board wipe and discard and life reduction where you can just pull ahead and win.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's great. I mean, I run it in my Togo Kesket deck because generally I can get a shit ton of treasures in that deck or get it to the point where I could do a really big cast of that. I think we see it in a handful of decks in our pod where, like, I think you might have it in a deck or two, Mike. I don't know if it's an aura.
Oh,
Tony
it's
definitely
not
has
an
it.
aura. It's not an aura, but I do think it's in like the Nicol Bolas deck, and
Yeah,
probably
that
in
might be it.
probably in the Cascade Glacian deck as well.
Yep. And I mean, you know, whenever it hits, like, I think it's just one of those things where you try to weather it as best you can.
Mhm.
And we've definitely had moments where it gets cast and the person doesn't win.
Yeah.
And somebody continues to fight through it or just is like, hey, I'm going to discard my whole hand and take a bunch of damage and keep my board state. You know, I think it has enough like interesting points where you can work through it. But if you dump enough mana in it, like you are going to be fucked at a certain point.
Mm-hmm. Tony, how do you feel about it?
I think this is one of those cards that it generates a shit ton of salt. And it depends on what side of the table you're on when it goes off. Because I feel so good when I cast it. And I feel like Sam said this doesn't make him salty, but I could think of a game when I played this card and won, and he was pretty fucking salty.
Really?
Yeah. And so I think it is directly correlated to where you're sitting at when it's cast, for how much salt it generates.
That's a good point.
Because it's also a bit of a game of a lot of the times you don't necessarily win off of it in the moment, but you probably still won because like you just drain so many resources. Like nobody's casting this for like 2, right? You're not doing a value Torment of Hailfire. You're doing it where it's enough that you fucking drain everyone's resources. So it's usually either all of their hand or all of their permanents. And like that is usually enough for you to kind of like take over.
Because often people will fly basically as close as they can to the sun on life, like drop as much life as they can, and then be like, okay, and now I have to start ditching permanents and cards in my hand.
Yep.
Yeah.
I will change my initial answer now that I'm racking my brain a little bit and agree with Tony that it very much depends on like your board state at the time. Because I've had games where I have like 3 creatures out and my board state sucks, and this is horrible when it hits because you're like, wow, I was already not in the game and now I'm really out of it. And then the person with like a bunch of tokens is like, I'll sack a few tokens away, whatever, and you're like, motherfucker, like I have nothing over here. I have nothing.
Right. It is one of those cards where if someone's doing pretty well, it actually doesn't slow them down that much. But someone that's like in a mid spot or like a little bit behind, that player is then just completely hosed at that point because they can't keep up with the amount that they have to pay into it.
Does this make you salty, Mike?
Yeah, I think so. I think partially because of that fact of like it actually impacting players that are behind worse than players that are ahead.
Yeah.
And I do agree that what you were saying earlier, Sam, where it's sort of in that set of win cons that are a little bit like
Lazy.
disappointing.
Like Crater Hoof,
Yeah.
Expropriate, Insurrection. Even Insurrection, I think I would be cool to see. I don't see it as much anymore. But just these big spells where you're like, haha, a huge spell, and then I
Right.
win the game.
Like Nick talks about this sometimes where it's like, if you're going to be casting a 10 mana spell, it should kind of win you the game. And it's
Yeah.
like, while that's true, someone playing a 10 mana spell and then winning the game is actually kind of boring a lot of the time, because it's like, okay, this one spell hits and everyone's like, all right. And then I think Torment of Hailfire has the added downside of sometimes it's not quite enough to win the game, and then you have to slog through like an extra 2 turns where they're just beating down the people that have like barely held on but haven't been able to scrap enough of a resistance together to actually get the win in.
Yeah,
So
it's
it
true.
can lead to this like prolonged, okay, now I have to actually kill you while you're super far behind moment.
Sometimes those do feel like the most interesting moments, though, when everybody's really been knocked down on resources and they have like a little bit left.
Yeah.
And each turn, I feel like this happens in our pod all the time. It's usually when it's down to like 1v1 almost, more so than like 3-on-1 or anything like that. But we'll have these things where it's back and forth, and you actually don't know who's going to win because somebody keeps getting like a little incremental value. Like somebody has a great board state, but no cards in hand, and the other person just is like full grip and is like someone's playing off the top and someone's like actually playing shit. And it just, I feel like this is how I lose to Mike like all the time. But anyway.
Yeah, I mean, you guys said it very well. Mike, you kind of put it into words, and I never really thought about the card in this light, but it really does punish people who are behind.
Yeah.
And because of that, I mean, if you put enough mana in, it's still a great win con, but it is kind of like bad value when you consider that the person that you're probably trying to stop at the table is going to have, generally speaking, depending on their board state, probably going to have an easier time weathering the storm, weathering the hailfire, and coming back to beat your ass.
Yeah, it's sort of the effect that's sometimes described as like win more in other games too. It's like, it's really good if you're ahead. It's kind of useless if you're behind. And it doesn't necessarily put you up on like someone that you're even with, but it does like just let you kind of close something out if you're already in the lead.
It can be tough to resolve too. Like, I think it is one of those cards that I mean, we are rules sticklers, as we said before, so we do tend to resolve this in priority order, like one trigger at a time.
Yeah.
Which takes some time, and I do think it is like the best way to do it, because as
Well, it also helps
people discard cards, you may choose, like, as people sack, discard, lose life, that may affect what you do too. Like, usually what I do is I will go down to a number of cards in hand that everybody else is at, if I can manage it, to like kind of try to keep it even. But obviously you can shortcut it.
Where on the list does this sit?
Yeah, that the next part of our game, as always, is trying to guess where we think it shows up on the list. So, Tony, what's your guess here?
37.
37.
82.
82. Sam takes it. This one is 95.
I thought that people would be mad because it gets played a lot. So that's why I put it higher on the list. Not because I think it's like overly. I'm not trying to game the system. I'm trying to think, what are the people who answered this survey going to put, which is not the way to go about it.
I should have guessed lower. I was surprised it was on at all, frankly.
Yeah. Well, I think one thing that does probably add a little bit, we've seen this in the past, is as cards get a little more expensive, people get frustrated by them. This is actually all the way up to like a $19 card.
What?
Which,
Wow.
yeah, is kind of surprising, right? Because it seems like it's an effect that we see kind of all over the place. Like many black decks run this as sort of a finisher card, and it is pretty far up there on price.
Interesting.
Yeah. Well, that wraps up our salty card of the week. Thanks for playing, guys.
Well, thanks, Mike. And thank you to our listeners for tuning into another episode of the Howling Salt Mine podcast. Oh, man. Listening to the episodes with you guys like making fun of me at that I was fucking dying, dude. Tony's like, and thank you for our listeners. Like, it's so true. I do. You got to turn it on, man. You got to turn on the
I
radio.
had the
voice.
affectation like perfectly.
It's the only way that I can like say the consistent thing is if I do that kind of voice.
Well, that's what I realized, because then the more I was doing it, the more I was like, oh, it actually flows very easily.
Yeah, dude.
It's just coming out of my soul this way. Like,
it does. And if you guys want more Howling Salt Mine podcast coming out of your soul, check us out on Patreon, patreon.com/Howling Salt Mine. We have extra monthly episodes with our extra salt series. We have bonus mini episodes in our Stray Grains series. Jump into our Discord. We're hanging out with people in there. We got all the prospectors in there, other members of the 30% chilling. People are playing pickup games. We're posting decks, talking about all that kind of stuff, geeking out about video games and anime and food and pets. And
there's a
fun shit
sports
like that.
ball
And memes
channel.
and sports.
Yeah, and there is a sports channel.
It exists in theory. I don't know when it was made, but it happened.
Another thing that you can do that is really helpful for the podcast is give us a 5-star review on your podcast listening app of choice. That helps make us more visible in the algorithm of all those various apps. We also have merchandise. You can rep the Howling Salt Mine in real life at your LGS or the next Magic convention you go to. We got shirts, we got hoodies, we got crop tops, we got it all. If you have a salty story and you'd like to have it on a future episode of the podcast, email us. Email us at our Gmail, thehowlingsaltmine@gmail.com. Check out our social media. We are on Instagram and Twitter, and you can find us on Reddit too for our weekly posts. If you find a salty post on Reddit, people continue to do this, and I continue to love it. If you find a salty post on Reddit, tag us in it, shoot it to us in a DM, summon us into that conversation, and we'll reach out to the original poster of that and see if we can get it on the show for a future episode. So there's tons and tons of different ways you can be a part of the Howling Salt Mine community. Lastly, we got to shout out our podcast artist, Devin Burnett, fantastic tattoo artist in Asheville, North Carolina. If you're ever in the area, hit him up. He's a great guy. It's really cool.
10,000 subscribers or bust.
Yep, we'll get tattoos, 10,000 subs. Guys, it's just been great to be back. I feel like I have so many words. Like, I feel like I talked a lot, and I normally talk a lot, and I feel like I really did a lot this time. So,
Winning.
Thank you. I love you.
I love you.
I love you too.
Well, thanks again, everybody. And as always, stay salty, and don't forget to draw an additional card during your draw step.
It's the Howling Salt Mine. The Howling Salt Mine.
Alrighty. Well, welcome back, prospectors. To
No.
another episode.
No.
I can't
Also,
even-
you never did it anyways. I listened to the episodes. I know you
It's
never
'cause
did
Mike
it.
wouldn't
It was
let me.
Mike.
Mike was like, I'm gonna do it. And then I thought about it and I was like, oh, this is why Mike did it. Because the ending is there's like way more shit to say.
Yeah,
Like,
that's
don't know what
hard.
any of it is. The beginning is like, hey,
That's
guys,
hard and no
like,
one
welcome
listens. I don't
back.
want to do that
Now
part.
It's like, oh shit, we got a fucking Patreon and we got links and we got
Man.
like Gmail.
It was
like,
so
eh.
cathartic to hear you guys like, oh, let's just fucking get into the episode. All right. Mike, were you about to segue? Did you have a hot segue you were about
It's
to hit
too
us with?
late.
Fuck.
To apologize.
What have I done?
It's too late.
All right.
Too late.
This next one, Tony.
It's too late.
Stop. So what's up, guys?
What
It's
up?
been a long time, huh?
It's
been a while.
Oh man, that might be the salty song this week.
I don't get to do a salty song, so I got to fit it in the random preamble.
In the rambling.
In the preamble.
Well, let's kick it off, guys. We're going to kick this off with this story comes from. How do I do this?
You don't even know what the fuck to do.
Oh, good. Whoa.
Whip.
What's on your shoulder?
Yeah, is that cum on your
Is
shoulder?
that a little? Is that a little?
You literally beat me
Is
to
that
it
a
because
little
I was gonna
juzz?
say that. It's fucking.
Is that a little juzz from your juzz jug?
It's a little juzz in the juzz jug. No, it's like paint. This is like my
Uh-huh.
painting.
Like-
It
It's
is
like
like
paint.
paint.
It's
I
like
see.
paint. So you could
Uh-huh.
smear your wall with cum and it'll become white-ish. It's more of a creme color, like a cream.
Yeah,
you
it's
know?
kind of like a sickly yellow. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm so glad this is getting cut.
No, this is making it.
No.
This is definitely making
This
it
is the
in.
cold open for the episode.
Well, we're done talking about cum. You want to get into a post?
So,
oh my god.